Have you been paralyzed by an important decision, feeling as if each option carries the weight of defining all its existence? Have you ever wondered why, at age 30 or more, the choices seem more complex and meaningful than when we were young? You may have spent clear nights thinking if you should change your career, end a relationship that no longer fills you, or if you should have that child that everyone expects, but about which you have deep doubts. If these questions echo in your soul, you are not alone on this journey. Decision anxiety is not just nervousness in the face of choices. It is something much deeper. It is the confrontation with our own existential freedom and the responsibility it brings with it. The paradox of freedom and maturity at 30. Something fundamental becomes our relationship with the choices. It is not just a chronological issue, but a qualitative change in the way we experience our freedom. If in youth decisions seemed reversible and experimental, now each choice carries the weight of temporal consciousness. We know that time is not infinite. This consciousness can generate what I call existential paralysis, a state in which the freedom to choose itself becomes a source of anguish. Paradoxically, the more options we have, the more difficult to decide. But this apparent problem contains in itself the seed of a deep transformation. Viktor Frankl noted that anxiety arises when we lost sight of our central purpose. Decision anxiety, therefore, is not about the choices themselves, but about disconnecting with what really matters in our existence. It is as if we were trying to navigate without compass, where any direction seems at the same time right and wrong. When Maria, a 34-year-old architect, came to my office, she summarized this condition perfectly. "Doctor, I have all the tools to build a life, but I don't know what life is worth building anymore." His anguish was not about capacity or resources, but about meaning and direction. The tyranny of accumulated expectations at 30. We carry the weight not only of our own expectations, but layers of family, social, and cultural expectations that have accumulated over decades. Each important decision seems like a complex negotiation between who we are, who we thought we would be, and who others expect us to be. This multiplicity of internal voices creates what I call existential cacophony, a constant noise that obscures our authentic voice. Decision anxiety arises when we try to satisfy all these voices, a humanly impossible task. John, a 36-year-old lawyer, expressed this masterfully. "I feel that I am trying to live 5 different lives at the same time, and end up not living any real." His exhaustion did not come from work, but from the constant attempt to be multiple versions of himself. Logotherapy teaches us that liberation comes not from the elimination of these voices, but from the clear identification of our central voice, the one that emerges from our deepest existential core. It is this voice that must lead the internal choir, not silence it. The myth of the perfect choice. One of the greatest decisional anxiety generators is the belief that there is a perfect choice, one that will lead us directly to happiness and fulfillment at no cost or sacrifices. This belief is not only illusory, but also paralyzing. Every significant choice involves renunciation. When we choose a path, we automatically renounce others. Existential maturity consists in accepting this reality without bitterness, understanding that perfection is not in the absence of sacrifices, but in their conscience and acceptance. Anna, a 38-year-old teacher who was considering a radical career change, initially sought a decision that preserved all her previous achievements. "I want to change but without losing anything I built," she said. His anxiety has only diminished when he understood that all genuine transformation requires leaving something behind. Conscious choice is not about finding the option free of charge, but about consciously choosing which costs we are willing to pay on behalf of our deepest values. The wisdom of conscious uncertainty. Paradoxically, peace with our choices does not come from absolute certainty about their results, but from certainty about our values and purposes. Frankl noted that we can tolerate virtually any like when we have clarity about why. Decision anxiety often reflects our attempt to control results that are beyond our control. We can choose our values, our attitudes, and our actions, but we cannot guarantee specific results. This distinction is fundamental to mental health. Ricardo, a 42-year-old businessman, was paralyzed by the decision to expand his business. His anxiety has decreased dramatically when he changed the question of, what choice will guarantee me success? For, which choice is most aligned with my values, regardless of the result? The inner listening process. Transforming decision anxiety into existential clarity requires developing what I call inner listening, the ability to distinguish between external noise and our authentic voice. This process is not mystical, but deeply practical. First, we need to create spaces of genuine silence, not just absence of noise, but moments where we stop consuming information, opinions, and external stimuli. It is in these spaces that our inner voice can emerge. Second, we must learn to ask no, what should I do? But who am I when I'm being more authentic? And what does my life want to become through me? These questions connect us with deeper dimensions of our existence. Third, it is essential to distinguish between neurotic fear and existential fear. Neurotic fear paralyzes us. Existential fear informs us. When we fear a choice because it drives us away from our comfort zone, this can be exactly the sign that it is the right choice for our growth. The courage of responsibility, decision anxiety, often masks our fear of responsibility. When we avoid choosing, we also avoid taking full responsibility for our lives. But this avoidance has a cost, the loss of our sense of agency and purpose. Frankl emphasized that we are condemned to freedom. We cannot escape the fact that we are responsible for our choices. Paradoxically, fully accepting this responsibility frees us from anxiety, as we stop seeking external guarantees for decisions that are inherently personal. Lucia, a 35-year-old psychologist, expressed this transformation. I stopped seeking the right choice and began to seek the courage to take any choice to make with integrity. His anxiety did not disappear, but became creative energy. The meaning through choices. Each important decision is an opportunity to express and refine our fundamental values. We don't just choose careers, relationships, or lifestyles. We choose who we want to be in the world and how we want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. Logotherapy suggests that we find meaning through three paths: creative values, what we give to the world; experiential values, what we take from the world; and attitudinal values, the stance we assume in the face of inevitable circumstances. Our choices can express any of these values. When Carlos, a 40-year-old engineer, decided to leave a lucrative career to teach in public schools, he was not just choosing a profession, but expressing his values about social contribution and personal meaning. His decision has generated initial anxiety, but also a deep sense of existential alignment. The practice of conscious decision. Developing decision clarity is a skill that can be cultivated through specific practices. First, the practice of conscious pause before important decisions. Instead of reacting on impulse or external pressure, we create a reflective space where we can consult our inner wisdom. Second, the values visualization exercise. Before deciding, we ask no, what will make me happy? But what kind of person will this choice allow me to be? And how does this decision express my deepest values? Third, the temporal test technique. We imagine our 80-year-old version looking back. What choice would it approve? Not for the absence of difficulties, but for the courage and authenticity demonstrated. The transformation of anxiety into energy. Decision anxiety, when properly understood, is not an obstacle to be eliminated, but existential energy to be channeled. It is the sign that something important is at stake, that we are in a moment of potential growth. Transformation occurs when we change our relationship with this energy. Instead of trying to eliminate her, we learn to dance with her. Anxiety becomes our growth partner, indicating when we are approaching significant territories of our existence. Marina, a 37-year-old journalist, described this change. I realized that my anxiety was my soul trying to tell me that the decision mattered. When I stopped fighting her and started listening to her, she became my ally. The paradox of acceptance. One of the most powerful insights on decision anxiety is that it often diminishes when we stop trying to eliminate it. Acceptance of uncertainty, as a fundamental human condition, frees us from tyranny, from the need for total control. This does not mean passivity or resignation, but recognition that we can act with purpose even in the midst of uncertainty. In fact, it is precisely our ability to act significantly despite the uncertainty that defines our humanity. Inner peace does not come from having all the answers, but of trusting our ability to navigate with integrity through the questions life presents us. The meaning community. Our decisions do not happen in a vacuum. We are relational beings whose choices affect and are affected by our network of relationships. Decision anxiety sometimes reflects our disconnection of this community dimension of our existence. When we consciously include in our decisions not only our individual well-being, but our contribution to the human community, our choices gain a broader dimension that can reduce egocentric anxiety. This does not mean sacrificing our authenticity by other people's expectations, but recognizing that our personal fulfillment is closely connected to our ability to contribute to something greater than ourselves. The courage of imperfection. One of the deepest releases is to accept that all our choices will be imperfect to some extent. This acceptance is not defeatism, but mature realism that allows us to act despite imperfection. The search for perfect choice is often a disguised way to avoid responsibility. When we accept that our choices will be imperfect, but they can still be brave and significant, we free ourselves to act. Life does not ask us for perfect choices, but conscious choices, and it is in the quality of our conscience, not the perfection of our results, that we find our existential dignity. Time as an ally at 30 or more, our relationship with time transforms. If it once seemed infinite, we now recognize its finitude. This consciousness can generate anxiety, but it can also be our greatest ally in decision-making. When we know that time is limited, we become more selective about how we use it. Awareness of mortality is not morbid, but clarifying. It helps us distinguish between the essential and the superficial. The existential urgency that comes with maturity can be transformed into fuel for more authentic and courageous decisions. We have no time to waste with choices that do not resonate with our existential core. The wisdom of the process. Finally, it is crucial to understand that the transformation of decisional anxiety into existential clarity is not a destination but a continuous process. There is no point where we master the art of deciding, but we can constantly grow in our ability to choose with conscience and courage. Each important decision is an opportunity to practice this art. Every moment of anxiety is an invitation to deepen our relationship with ourselves. Each brave choice strengthens our ability to the next one. Life is a succession of choices, and our task is not to choose perfectly, but consciously choose. It is in this conscience that we find our freedom, our purpose, and our peace. If these reflections have touched something in your soul, if you recognize your own struggles on the journey to transform anxiety into clarity, you are not alone on this path. Here we create a space to explore the deepest issues of human existence together in maturity. Subscribe to our channel to continue this journey of self-knowledge and existential growth. Because some of the most important questions in life can only be explored in community, with others who also seek to live with purpose and authenticity. His presence here is no coincidence. It is part of his own journey towards clarity and meaning.